Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Danse. Regarde, posé sur moi.
So, welcome everyone to another episode of Creating Web3. I am your host, Tiffany Monahan, and I am here with Hannah Kanzin, who is the founder of London Women Leading Web3. She's a Web3 consultant and a partner at Digital Wealth Fund. She's also an entrepreneur and just a woman with many, many hats. And Hannah, it would be great if you could introduce yourself to the audience.
Fun. Thanks for having me on, Tiffany. It's really fun to be here. I've got loads of hats at the moment, as I think most people in Web3 do. I was just saying before we started the podcast that I'm like almost reaching like my middle age of 50, and I still don't know quite what I'm doing, but I'm doing lots of stuff. I've been an entrepreneur actually for most of my life. I actually started my life as an educator. So I was a teacher, which quite a lot of people actually are in Web3, educators or naturally like creative. So I started my life as a teacher, an educator. Something that I'm really passionate about is education, and was in that sector for about 20 years, left in the early 2000s to start a nonprofit in Web2 for educational technology platforms. So we built and developed like tech platforms for schools around the world. And I learned everything there was really to do about like development, from developing on Flash-based platforms right through to Rust. Looking at that really exposed me to a lot of what was happening in the development sector and Web3. And basically from there found out about Bitcoin. Satoshi's white paper, early like 2017, became what we call a bit of a crypto degen OG. So I spent a lot of time just reading everything I could about and started to do a lot of work in there. So now I am partner in a crypto hedge fund. I started London Women Leading Web3, which is something that I'm passionate about, and I know that we're going to discuss today. And I'm also consulting with a lot of people. Actually, just today, I had a meeting with a very large company that some of you might know called Animoca, who are doing an educational-based sort of solution to education on the blockchain, and I'm consulting with them now as well. So there's a lot going on, a lot of growth, a lot of creativity happening in the space, and it's very exciting, very fast moving, but really, you know, I'm enjoying every minute of it, and I think it's a great space for anyone interested in you know, moving the world forward and, you know, progressing to the future to get involved in.
Awesome. And I know last time, to directly quote you, you had said that one of the reasons that you were really passionate and seriously obsessed for Web3 was the profound change it can have for the world and really for women. And I would love to have our conversation start there with this lens of, you know, Web3, we think of it as a technology, and we've seen how technology can change our lives, can change our culture, but how could it really have this profound change for women in particular?
I mean, there's so much. I think what really spoke to me in the beginning was the ease of accessing you know, trade, the ability to trade really and create wealth on your phone using cryptocurrency was a game changer for many women. So if you look across the world as a whole, like third world countries, a lot of women actually don't have bank accounts, they don't have access to money. And especially in some of the countries in the Middle East, they're not even allowed to have a bank account. So having a phone is a complete game changer for women being able to access and start to invest their own funds. Cryptocurrency allows you to do so quite easily as long as you can get your head around the technology. And I think for me, like, I was never a trader. I never, you know, really participated in stocks and shares. But as soon as crypto came onto the market, I don't know, it just like spoke to me, maybe because I was in tech. but I understood what these tokens were, not all of them. There are some that are really just like meme coins, like Elon Musk, tweets and they go up and everyone makes a shitload of money. But basically, like a lot of these tokens represent technical projects, and having that understanding of the technical space, I was able to sort of make quite good evaluations on whether a project is going to rise in value, and was able to invest based on some knowledge, although it's still extremely volatile. And I would not recommend anyone going into it lightly, and I've lost a hell of a lot of money as well as making, but most people have lost more than they've made, and we have to be realistic about the good as well as the bad. I mean, it's a horrendous place in terms of scams and hacks and safety, and you really do need to know what you're doing, and we're still so early. But then I think what happened was the NFT area opened up, and I suddenly realized that this was what I'd been waiting for. Was a marriage of this technology, the crypto and the finance, the alternative financial model, which for me was very important, not just for women, but also in terms of democratization of currency, because the current structures across the world and the governments managing them are just making a complete mess. National debt, the interest rates, macro is dire, right? So this for me is a solution, and I think people are seeing that. Plus what's happening online, like the building that's taking place, the gaming that's taking place, the infrastructure that's taking place, all need payment systems to be embedded in that, which is why for me crypto is going to be a winner, because we have to have these online payment systems, and we have to have these virtual currencies, and we have to have the blockchain technology behind that. But then what I loved about NFTs was two things. Number one, the creative aspect. So all of a sudden you had people who are passionate about sort of the humanities, like the fashion, the art, the music, were able to marry that with this crypto ecosystem. And that was very, very exciting. And I think brought in a lot more women into the space. And, I see that as becoming bigger in a way than crypto. I think that the NFT sort of Web3 area sector, which marries these industries, these creative industries with technology and the blockchain is super exciting. And I personally have seen the number of women grow like tenfold in the past year and continue to increase. And it's empowering for women to be able to support themselves and be able to start companies and start businesses and trade and get involved. So yeah, I'm very excited about what's happening right now for women and for the world.
What I think about is interesting about what you're saying is it almost sounds like comparing kind of like this first wave of crypto to this second wave of NFTs, where when you were talking about crypto, it's like you really need to know what you're doing. On one hand, it's democratizing a way that you can invest your money and have access to money. But on the other hand, it's quite exclusive because you need to really understand it, and it's almost easier to just say like, oh, forget it. I it's too much for me, like just forget it. But where that might be a way crypto is seen, and NFTs are seen more as like a creative expression, like something you can really identify with, which is more of a visual language, I would say, less than a technical one.
I think it's really about personality. I think I think you do find communities in the crypto space, and I was definitely part of many communities. It's how I started my fund, was through a community. But the community aspect of the NFT world is just so strong. Once you get involved with a project, it's amazing, especially the women projects, the women-led projects, and the women-backed projects. The communities are usually very loyal, very strong. They hold the NFTs for a long time, and they want to help create this community structure. I've never seen so many women willing to share and work together and want to sort of align their strengths. And for me, that's just such a positive. So there is a difference and there isn't a difference. It's really like how, like every crypto, not every, but most crypto tokens and projects are that. They are projects. So you're buying sort of, these tokens represent a share of the company, right? Or that some of them are financial instruments like stable coins, and you and the DeFi aspect where you generate yields. So all of this is experimental. It's very early. There's been huge losses and a lot in the media about it, and people losing their keys and people being hacked. So it is a minefield, and you have that in the NFT ecosystem as well. It's no different. The NFT ecosystem is built on this technology. So you do need to have a basic understanding of what you're doing when you are approaching the space. And some people could find that overwhelming and not want to go into that because they're scared, or they're, or they just feel that they're not technical. And unfortunately, I would say that we are so early that the user experience isn't great. So like there are wallets and there are plenty of videos and you can learn how to do this in a simple way, but it's not simple enough. There are people that are working, night and day to make that user experience more simplified, and it is getting better. But it's still a bit of the Wild West, and you still kind of need to know what you're doing, or you are going to, at some point experience loss. So it's something that I would say is worth, if you are someone who's looking to get involved in this space. What I did when I first started was I didn't get involved at all for about a year. I just read everything I could about it. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to absorb that knowledge. And we're so lucky we're in this information age where everything is accessible. I think it is going to affect every single part of our lives, from education to buying a car, to buying a house, to buying your shopping, to buying tickets for a concert. Every single area of life, fashion, everything, right, is being disrupted. So I think that if you can educate yourself, you're just know more than 90% of the world, and that's a good thing. There is a question on how you educate yourself, and there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. So that is difficult, but there are plenty of groups out there that are, you can find that are solid, secure, and recommended.
With some of those groups, I mean, I think many people often think of communities that are in Web3. Maybe they're thinking of more crypto communities where they're really associated with like Bored Apes, and then you start to think of gaming, and you almost get this feeling of, maybe it's not the best word, but these communities can be quite bro-y and not so welcoming for women, and maybe not actually a good place to like jump in and learn from peers.
Yeah, there is a bro culture. I experienced it. In fact, I'll tell you a story. I was once on Discord, which I absolutely hate, and go on it as little as humanly possible, but you have to be on it if you're in the NFT space. But I was on Discord, and my friend was on there, and she used a male name as her identity. And I was literally gobsmacked when I saw the difference in how she was spoken to the difference I was spoken to, just because I was using a feminine name and she was using a masculine name. And I said to her afterwards, I just had to speak to her about it. And I said, I just can't believe like how it really, really affects the way you're spoken to. Like, it's just crazy. So yes, there is definitely an underlying bro culture. But what is amazing is that there are many, many women projects, very successful women projects. Like there's Women Rise, led by this amazing woman called Mahila, who has done this project to raise money through her NFTs for women in third world countries who can't go to school because of the Taliban, and she's using the money to build a virtual school to educate them, right? So that there's this education project that was just I'm consulting on like right now, which is going to transform and redefine education as we know it by teachers, right? So to help teachers. There's Women Rise, Fame Ladies, there's like WOW, World of Women. So there are lots and lots of female-led projects. Many, I mean, there's also loads of amazing female artists, one-of-one artists as well, incredibly inspirational women. in the space that are leading phenomenal projects. They're talented, they're strong, and I think that's what led me to set up this organization. So I was going to a lot of in real life NFT events, and I started to meet. At the beginning, when I started, it was very male centric. There were a lot of men. It's quite intimidating to go to an in real life event alone as a woman. You know, it's not the nicest of feelings. So I used to migrate to other women, and inevitably they were all really dynamic, creative, lovely people who were also interested in the space, extremely talented, and I was really inspired by them. And after going to a few and meeting these amazing women, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to introduce you all to each other because you're all amazing. And each one was running like a company or doing a phenomenal thing in Web3. So I started a WhatsApp group, and it was just transformational in our lives. Like, we all started to say, how did we live without this WhatsApp group? We were all sharing different events we were going to so that we wouldn't have to go alone. We were helping each other through difficult situations because it's so male dominated. And these women, I identified the women who were actually C-level women or lead. So they're women who tend to be in the boardrooms, usually as the only woman there. They're leading companies. They're really creating change, systemic change. In senior positions. And what I notice is the higher you go up into Web3, or indeed I say any industry, the less women there are, unfortunately. So there are quite a lot of, you know, women emerging artists and women emerging in fashion, but the higher up you go in the job sort of hierarchy, the fewer there are. And for me, that's a massive problem, because if Web3 is going to be what we think it is, which is disrupting every type of industry, retail, the biggest consumers actually in the world are women. I think 52% of the world's consumers are women. And so we want, I mean, all these brands that are coming in space need to market to the biggest consumer bracket. And in order to do that, we need women on these projects advising. The nuancing is very, very important. So most of these projects have, you know, completely male teams. They're not going to be able to appeal to that very important women consumer market. So we basically, this WhatsApp group just became more and more important, and we just decided that actually we want to create a network for women leading Web3. We started it in London just because we're all based in London, but we are, you know, in time going to move it worldwide, but we don't want to rush. And we're actually forming a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. So it's a new construct in business. There's new laws that we're actually trying to figure out in terms of how we govern this with tokens. So it's truly decentralized and everybody has value and opinions, and that can be actually awarded through financial benefits through tokenization.
Could you actually break this down a little bit and really talk about, you know, the moment you were like, let's create a DAO, to like, okay, what do we need to outline, and like, what does it actually mean to have one?
The women in the group actually said that we're going to make a film at the end of it, and we've even nominated the actresses that are going to play us because it's so interesting. It's just
I love it.
A passion project for all of us. So how did this happen? So we created this WhatsApp group, and we started to meet face to face once a month, and face to face is so important. So although this is all taking place digitally, and there are negatives, far too much screen time, mental health is a huge issue and of huge concern to me. You know, I am not completely in Web3 all the time, and I never will be. I'm actually working a lot in Web2 too. I do not agree with being consumed by this all the time, and we need to take breaks. But the in real life was absolutely essential. And what we did while we met in these in real life events, actually hosted, I'm going to mention them, by Albright, which is a great women's members club, and they actually hosted us for free and supported us. So I'm going to give them a mention. Thank you, Albright. So we used to meet there once a month. We still meet there once a month. And it became more and more important to us to actually form a proper community around this, so that we can really think about what we're doing. Although we enjoyed meeting once a month, even just as a support network, we wanted to be bigger than that, and we wanted to really be of value and have a voice. We have a bunch of women who are extremely talented. And it's very rare to have a company where you have so many talents in one space. So we have like one of the top lawyers in Web3, and we have one of the top platform creators and one of the top art experts and one of the biggest NFT collectors. And they're all sitting there bringing in their own, bias and their own knowledge into this community of sharing and culture, which is so powerful, with view to helping other women who are leading in the space. So there are other communities that have been set up to onboard women into the space, to onboard, to literally take any woman from anywhere who wants to learn about Web3, and they're onboarding. We have created this community for women who are already in Web3 in senior positions who just need support. And I would say that goes with anything, like any organization or any, it could be Web2, it could be anything, like lawyers, women lawyers, they come together and they support each other. We've just found it's just been so transformative that we wanted to give it structure. So how do we do this? Well, the most important thing I can say is that I didn't do it. I didn't, right? The most important thing was me actually letting go and say, okay, I started a WhatsApp group, but that doesn't make me, a leader in the sense that I am dictating what we do from now on. Okay, so although every organization needs someone to push it forward slightly and just arrange like the lunches or whatever, I felt like I've got such a bunch of talent here, it would be wrong of me to put my own agenda across. Why not hear what everyone else has to say? And that is, I would say, the very epitome of what Web3 is. It's about everybody having a say and everybody taking ownership. So the Web2 was literally like almost like a dictatorship. We are going through a funnel of these 4 or 5 global sort of big companies who are manipulating our journey online. Web3 is allowing us to take control of that journey and democratizing that. And what happens when that happens is the most magical experience I've had. All of a sudden, I have these women who all have talents and all have ideas coming together and saying, how about this? How about that? And what we've done is we've formulated that. We nominated some people to be on a committee to start formulating this organization. What is this organization? What does it look like? In fact, we have a meeting straight after this where we're presenting our vision for this organization going forward, and we're all going to vote on it. So a decentralized autonomous organization works through tokenomics. So you have tokens, and the amount of tokens depends on how active you are in the organization, and those tokens give you voting rights. And then you have a say in how the organization is run. So it's not like a limited company where you have directors. Everybody, in a sense, is a director, and they're all giving their ideas on how this company should run. Obviously, it doesn't work completely without having some leaders. So what we're doing is we are trying to sort of nominate some people who will lead things or take things forwards or have more voting rights. And we're trying to figure this out. There are quite a few DAOs now in existence. Some of them have been more successful than others. We're trying to do this within the law. So we will be opening up a limited company and a bank account just because we have to do that. But we have really grand visions and ideas. And this is an experiment for us just as much as anyone else. We want to see if we can navigate this. What will it do? It may, we have visions of perhaps helping government, with our knowledge and experience of forming this DAO and advising them. We have visions of perhaps, helping brands and giving them our idea on how to access Web3. But most importantly, our main mission is to support women in this, in leadership positions in the space, and provide a network and business opportunities, and also have a philanthropic angle as well. We do want to support other women-led charities and philanthropic angle. So it's very exciting. I still quite don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but when you're onto something good, everything kind of just flows and happens. And I think the most wonderful part has been how all these women with all these talents have come together openly for a greater cause. And we all feel it. We're very excited about what we're building, and we feel very passionate. I mean, every meeting we have, it kind of blows my mind, the talent in the room. And I think that was just such a profound lesson for me about just, welcoming other people, getting other people's advice and ideas, and how much greater the sum of that is than just one person's ideas and goals. And that for me, is like I said, it is what Web3 is all about. So yeah, it's been a very exciting journey to date. And watch this space. It's on Twitter. It's at LWLW3. So our acronym is LWLW3. Soon it will be one day, Women Leading Web3 will drop the London. But if you want to follow us we're on Twitter, we're on Discord, and we are on LinkedIn. So yeah, we would love to keep you informed on what's going on, but it's very exciting.
And we'll put all of the links to London Women Leading Web3 in the show notes and everything. So we'll be sure to share a lot of the resources that you're talking about now. But one of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times, and I saw in the Digital Wealth Fund, you had a newsletter where I think it was in the most recent one talking about these creative crossover projects with especially like fashion and luxury. And one of the things I would love your perspective on is how you see that bridge between Web 2 and Web 3, because I think a lot of people talk about it as a transition, but what you had said earlier even is, it's still remains both there. It's important not to spend all of your time in this like immersive Web 3 context, but maybe there's multiple ways that we can think about it.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you brought this up, because it's another real bugbear and passion of mine. And I know that, as I mentioned the word degens, some of the NFT real purists, are very anti Web 2. So they will, they just say, we don't like Web 2, we don't like them having all our data, let's get away. That's Web 3 was about, restructuring everything. I don't agree with that at all. I think that the success of Web 3 is dependent on Web 2. Actually, Web 2 have the mass users, the mass consumptions. And if we really want Web 3 to be embedded in daily life and daily use, we are going to have to merge with Web 2. There's absolutely no question in my mind. It's already happening on Instagram. So Instagram are now embedding NFTs into their photos, which is a natural. Facebook are rebranded as Meta. They're going into the metaverse. I mean, it's all happening. Whether we like it or not, and whether you agree with it or not, I think that from my point of view, the synergy is absolutely fundamental, and there will be eventually, no distinction. I think that blockchain technology will help with the problems that we've had to do with data protection and those monopolies. But I think for people to think, oh, well, we're going to, usurp Facebook, or we're going to get bigger than Instagram because we're designing this Web3 solution, is just, the world isn't there yet. We're really far from that. This idea of this metaverse, whatever it is, doesn't exist. There isn't a metaverse. With the metaverse, it does exist. It exists right now on Instagram, Discord, Twitter. We all live in a virtual world. We all have digital identities. We all have digital avatars in one way or another. So we do live in a metaverse, but it's not in a sense, this oasis type of world that exists. It will, I have no doubt, at some point, but maybe not in our lifetimes, And I think that this idea of ignoring Web 2 is just not going to work. And it's why, I do make an effort to try to reach people using those platforms, not just Twitter, for instance. And again, a lot of the major brands and the major, retailers are really, really delving now into the space and investing significantly, but do so, I think, with more confidence, knowing that you have backing by major corporates or, sort of older style systems to reach your consumers. So I think that the NFT ecosystem and the Web3 ecosystem as we know it is still very, very, very small. If we look particularly at NFTs, because Web3 is far broader, but if you look particularly at NFTs, there were only about 300,000 wallets. I think that's actually even half now. I think there may be like 150,000 active wallets right now. I mean, it's just so small right now, which is a positive thing in a way for people that are building, because they get to really connect with the community as a whole. Most people know most people in it by now, and it's quite close, and everyone's sharing information and building. But if we want to migrate to world usage and world consumption, we need to have the tens of millions, not the hundreds of thousands. And we're only going to do that by bridging the gap between Web2 and Web3 and acknowledging certain systems that are working to get our messaging across. The user experience needs to improve. So I think that's absolutely fundamental and crucial for the future of the technologies that are being built now. And we're seeing it happening anyway. That is what's happening right now. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do. We're very, very early. We're very early. Like, if anyone's even listening to this podcast now, you're already probably ahead of 98% of the world just listening to this. And so that's exciting, and it gives people an edge. And I think that's why people who are in it are so passionate.
And I think for sure, and the example of the wallet is just one of the barriers to entry. And I even think that it shows, if anybody's going to be most likely to create or maybe knock down that barrier to entry, it would be a company like Meta or one of the big retailers who already have all of their consumers already have loyalty accounts set up with them. And it's the ones that are really supporting that infrastructure that maybe are able to easily create the solution to get more and more people on board. And one thing I thought was interesting is I recently went to a metaverse summit in Paris, and many of the speakers were from Meta, were from L'Oreal, from these big large corporations, to talk about what they were already doing in the metaverse and in Web3. And there of course were scale ups and startups there as well, but they're definitely, the Web2 players are definitely big players in Web3 as well.
Oh yeah, everyone's going that way, because it's like that moment I had in 2017 when I was reading Satoshi's white paper. Anyone in tech could see so clearly what was happening and how this makes so much sense. So people can see this is the future, but it's still, harnessing that and getting that out to the world, like you said, needs a lot of support from both major corporations, from governments, whether we like it or not. I know that a lot of people who are in, the Web3 communities are quite anti-institutions, and, but really, we're going to have to onboard governments. We need more regulation. That's a good thing. I'm a strong believer in regulation. I think that we need regulation to go forward so people can, protect their money and protect, their experiences and their assets. So
could you actually talk about that a little bit? Because I think the word regulation would have like people diving under their desk.
It just really means that governments are going in and seeing what's going on and really making people accountable. So right now, when you have, these, that I know personally a few companies that have been set up that look really reputable and promising you like, take my money and we'll give you like 20% return, but they're not being regulated because they don't need to be, because it's a gray area in law, which means that if you give them your money and they just don't return it, they call it a rug pull, so they just like run with your money, there's nothing you can do about it because it's not regulated. So if you put your money in a bank and a bank did that, you would be able to claim back your funds. But right now, without that regulation, there's no way of protecting you if you put that money into crypto or NFTs. It's very, very hard to, unless you have some sort of regulated way of doing it. Like, for example, our fund is FCA approved and regulated. So, we have to be very careful where we put that money and make sure that our investors are fully apprised and that money is protected. But the investors are made fully aware of the risks, and they have to sign many documents to say that, you know, this is a high risk investment because of the lack of regulation. And what's happening is you're hearing in the news a lot about these huge you know, crypto losses of billions and billions of pounds and dollars because of the lack of regulation. So people who have the trust, you know, it's happened to me, and I've been in this for many years. I put my assets into platforms that I felt were run by people that I trust and were running it correctly, and they were in fact running it really badly and taking gambles with my money because they weren't regulated. If they were regulated, then the law would come in and say, you can't do that. That's overextending you out. You're over leveraging, and you're going to cause that money, if the market collapses, which is what happened, the money will then be gone. And that's exactly what's happened. So there's been scams and scammers, there's been hackers, there's been people who have just spent money on over leveraging and greed. And all of this has resulted in a lot of bad press for crypto, which is wrong, because ultimately, I think a lot of the projects that I've invested in and I'm excited about are really transformative in a good way for the world. But because of greed or mismanagement and the lack of regulation, there's been huge losses. You know, also having that information at our fingertips. I know of platforms, I know personally of people that are building much more user-friendly platforms now that will only, for example, have projects on that you can invest that have been fully regulated and approved and gone through these processes. So there are people trying to help this. And I think that, you know, give it another few years and this will you know, flow much better and be a much safer, better place. But we've had to go through this growing pain to get there. And the same thing's happening in the NFT sector, which is where crypto was sort of like 5 years ago. So this is all very, very new. A lot of the stuff that I would say 95% of most projects will go to zero. And we have to understand that that is a process that we need to go through in order to get to the place where the innovation can be adopted. There's a lot of learning that's taking place now. And inevitably that will lead to casualties, but it will also, from failure, you gain success, you learn. And that's what's happening right now. There's a huge learning curve.
And for those who want to look out for projects that are really, you know, like you said, there's projects who are dedicated to making sure that they provide others with, if you want to get involved, here's the projects who are legitimate and giving that seal of approval. And how can people really find who those players are versus others?
It's really, really tricky. It's actually really, really hard. I actually wrote a LinkedIn post about this a few days ago about if you're looking for Web3 advisors, my advice is consider everyone a scammer. Anyone who says they're an expert is probably not. In fact, it's just come out in the press now that some of these crypto influencers that had millions of followers were, you know, they were ex, you know, convicts or whatever they were, you know. So it could be absolutely anyone who's just literally put the word expert in their LinkedIn profile because they've traded a bit of crypto. I mean, that's what's happening right now. So how do you get around that? So there's a few things. Number one is recommendations. Find out from people that you trust and who are either working successfully in the space or have made successful investments. Get recommendations from them. Like, where did you learn from? Where do you pick up? What podcasts do you follow? It's also be aware it's not the number of followers that someone has. It really doesn't matter. Someone can buy followers. You can't, it's not an indicator of how popular someone is, whether that information is correct. But, you know, that can give a slight indicator, but I would say recommendations, past projects and successes. So Really, I would say if you're looking to get information from an educator, how do they know this knowledge? Have they been involved in projects that have been successful? Have they been personally a successful investor? Can you see evidence of that? And where is that evidence? And I would say, people who are with the project that you can trust, although don't forget, a lot of celebrities are paid for their time. So even that's not quite an indicator. So I would definitely go with recommendations. Let's say this is a podcast that you trust, so you inevitably will put on platforms that you recommend for teaching and learning. I definitely know personally one of our women in our group runs a group called Women of Web3, and that is a great education platform. She actually was an ex-Meta employee who started this movement for onboarding women. I know that her education stuff is great. I think BFF have some great education pieces. Even some of the actual main trading platforms like Binance and Coinbase have some really good educational content on them. If you're looking for Web3 advisors, I also say what the most important thing is to get track record and history. And recommendations from people face to face, not written, because anyone can pick those as well. This will get easier. People like Meta will start to do more education and Instagram and things like that.
You actually gave similar advice as Asa, who was on the last podcast, where she said one of the best indicators is to actually look at some of their past projects as well and see what was the success and what was the trend between them. So I think that's some great advice. And for the last point today, Hannah, I think it would be great to hear from you just one thing that you're super excited about in the next couple of weeks, next months in the Web3 world that you're looking forward to.
I think I mentioned I'm working with this amazing education company called TinyTap that are working with Animoca, and they are releasing some education-based NFTs, which they're really going to disrupt the education system as we know it, and provide income and revenue streams for teachers. So I'm super excited.
Thank God.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that because it is sort of marrying all the things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about education, passionate about Web3, I'm passionate about democratizing, the finances and being a bit more equal. So I'm very excited about that. Animoca is a huge company. I don't know if many of you know it, but run by this guy called Yak-Su, who's very influential in the space and is also passionate to make this happen. And it also shows that, the NFT and Web3 community isn't just about like Bored Apes and, there's actually more to it, and it can be really powerful and really can change the world for better, and this project is definitely one of those. So I'm super excited about that, as well as our DAO meeting that I have in about 10 minutes with my London women leading Web3, and see where that goes. So there's lots happening. Very, very excited. And yeah, just keep going. My Twitter is Alice, well, it's actually Rex Alice at the moment, at in NFT land. I'm sure Tiffany will put that on the notes, but please follow me, and then you can keep updated on what I'm passionate about, or sometimes I just write some rubbish as well, but that will keep you informed on stuff that I'm passionate about. Regular sort of London meetups too. There's some amazing London meetups happening. Mila Lolly from We Are NFT UK is amazing. She does the most amazing community meetup. Gerard Sands from Web3 London does amazing London meet. So if anyone's in London, check us out. Hit me up on Twitter, DM me, and I would love to meet you or set you up with some of our Web3 meetups as well. So yeah.
Amazing.
That's it from me.
Well, thank you so much for joining today. This was an awesome conversation. I loved it.